Evolving with Soul, a conversation series for self-discovery and soul alignment. Explore the path of personal growth and awaken your inner wisdom. Each episode offers soulful insights, practical tools, and real reflections to support your evolution from the inside out. This is Evolving with Soul. I'm Josette Diaz. Through the Art of Awareness community membership, I guide women back to their true essence, free from expectations. Join us in the journey, Evolving with Soul, new episodes weekly. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Evolving with Soul. I'm Josette Diaz, and I am a self-awareness coach and creative strategist for women. Most people live on autopilot, mistaking familiarity for self-awareness. The art of awareness invites you into the unseen, where the soul speaks, patterns dissolve, and a deeper way of living begins. Now, I have a beautiful guest coming in with me. Her name is Vasi Huntalas. You may know her and recognize her. She is a breakthrough mindset mentor and professional intuitive. Vasi is guiding new and seasoned entrepreneurs through the inner shifts that create real-world momentum fast. Using a powerful mix of intuitive insight and subconscious clearing, she helps you maximize your impact as a visionary leader. So we are going to be starting off with a different topic today. And welcome, Vasi. It's so nice to see you this morning. How are you?
I'm great. Excited to be exploring this fun topic with you.
Me too. I'm really excited. We are going to be talking about how when the soul speaks in color, the quantum power of creativity. And most people think of creativity as art, music, or writing. What if it's much more than that? In this episode, we'll explore how creativity is one of the most direct pathways to soul communication and why quantum science supports this idea. You'll discover how entering a creative state helps bypass the analytical mind, tap into deeper wisdom, open doors to insight, healing, and aligned living. So let's dive into the space where intention meets energy and your soul begins to speak in color, feeling, and flow. So, Vasi, I'm so excited to have this conversation. We were chatting a little bit about this earlier. And if you are prepared or would like to, I would love for you to kind of read the quantum definition we were talking about this morning.
Oh, yes. Well, there's a couple definitions, neither of us being physicists, but I will read the definition. It deals with the behavior of matter and energy at the atomic and subatomic level. That was one of the definitions. And would you like me to do the other one we talked about?
Yes, yeah.
About that? Yeah. It was about, in quantum physics, how there's the observer, and it's tied to the issue of the observer effect, whereas when we look at something, we're actually exerting an influence on it, and it changes. We're interacting with the physical object as an observer.
Yes, I love that. And we were further speaking of quantum mechanics, which is the formulation of okay, I am not a physicist or a scientist in any way, but the definition that I found was a theory that describes the physical properties of nature at the scale of atoms and subatomic particles, explaining how these tiny particles behave and interact. And one of the things that's interesting to me about quantum mechanics, that we hear about this all the time, is the observation of a particular item. Is those atoms and subatomic particles are sitting there waiting to merge into, that's what makes it solid and turns into something more tangible in front of us, is once we look at that, that happens. Now, don't quote me on all of this because, I'm just like anybody else who's like a very, very much a layman, trying to understand how quantum works. And that's why I wanted to talk about this today, because I thought it would be a really good topic that fits right into creativity and how that interacts. And so what do you think about that observation piece? We were sort of talking a little bit about this
Mhm.
earlier before we came
Absolutely.
on.
Well, and when I tune into this at more of a non-scientific level, more of a universal level,
Mhm,
what I get is that this is about how everything is connected.
mhm.
And we're using a term or a science or physics to explain how everything is connected. That is a truth. That is a truth that there's no separation between us and physical matter. It may feel like it, right?
Mhm, mhm.
So, in terms of creativity, what I love about this is that we're always creating, we're master creators. So, we're
Yeah.
always creating our reality in every moment.
Mhm.
So, that observer effect is to the degree that we have a certain perception of reality, a certain expectation, that's going to influence what we're creating in the world, whether
Yeah.
it's an art piece, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a business, whether it's a vision, whatever it is, right? How we enter it energetically influences what flows back to us. So, like if we imagine that infinity symbol, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Right? It's like
Right.
I heard a word outpicturing, right? Outpicturing reality because it starts from here. And then as we're putting our energy out or our thoughts, our frequency, it's creating a change in whatever's out there.
Yes. Yes, exactly. It's in well, okay, so when we think about this is what comes to my mind, is that these are things that, a lot of people who, practice metaphysics or have been in practice of manifestation, all those other things that we talk about in the spiritual sense, have been happening without really having a name for it. Quantum came in and gave science to what has been going on for centuries, right? Since the beginning of time. And so when I think about that, I think about then what is creativity really? It's not just about art, it's not just about how we express, how we solve something or play and reflect. It's intuitive, it's nonlinear, and it's expansive. So, um, considering that, if we look at applying, what we know about quantum physics, then isn't that us opening the doorway within ourselves? I mean, maybe a lot of people know this. I'm just putting it together, but I'm think that I'm not alone in thinking that I don't understand completely how that interacts, or I just have never really given it too much thought. So that's why I wanted to kind of explore it a little bit, because I think that that opens up this doorway within you that is a quantum field. And if we start looking at how the science works with it, it might give us a different kind of understanding so that we can apply more practical steps to it for our.
Mm. Mhm.
So that was why I wanted to kind of, let's just put it out there and talk about what we don't know and what we do know,
Yeah.
and just see where we go with this. Because if
Mm.
we can open that doorway to creativity, that is the complete opening of curiosity, possibility, unknown, unseen, what does that do for us?
Mhm. Yeah. And what I just so love about what you're saying is that opening the doorway. Because to me, that's like another way of saying a portal, right? That
Mhm.
has
Yeah.
always existed, that's always there for us. And what is the key that's going to open that doorway? It's like you said, our
Mhm.
curiosity,
Yeah.
it's our sense of wonder and awe. Like we don't know anything, and
Right.
we don't know everything. We know some
Right.
things.
Right. Yeah.
But if we start from that place of like almost the innocence of a child, right? And oh, I wonder what's on the other side of this. I wonder what happens when I step through. And then there's also this sense of playfulness. And so I
Mm,
never equated playfulness with quantum, but I'm getting that that's one of the frequencies, one of the energies
yeah.
that unlocks
Yes.
quantum for us, or
Yes.
helps us access it as playfulness and fun. What do you think
Mhm.
about that, Josette?
I think that that is absolutely true because what I also feel is that when you are engaging in creativity, you're automatically slowing down your system.
Mm,
It's allowing you to go into a deeper place, and what you're really accessing is your heart center,
mm,
and you're arriving in a space that, allows you to really start receiving that you're opening that connection of intuition,
yeah,
and intuition is a direct line to your truest essence, to your higher self, right?
yes, yes. Intuition is the voice of our soul,
Mhm.
our higher self, our true
Yeah.
self.
Yeah.
And that's what's so wonderful about creativity is it captures the feelings, the images, the symbolism. Those are
Mhm.
all aspects of our right brain, that those sorts of
Yes.
imagery. And we don't necessarily need to know where that comes from. I'm getting really strongly that that's important because in our linear world, our scientific world, it's like, okay, let's figure out the rational logic,
Mhm.
linear explanation of something.
Yes.
And that's a whole different paradigm for intuition and creativity because it comes in with its own wholeness, doesn't come in
Right.
pieces. The left
Right.
brain is very much pieces, the right brain is very much holistic.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
action items. It's very like a list.
Right, right.
And I what's occurring to me listening to you is that, that that part of us that taps in when we open ourselves up to tapping into our intuitive knowing and to make that connection with our higher self, then aren't we in the truest form of practice that we're here for?
Mm,
What if the whole idea around, you hear about, in the spiritual, uh, you know, places, you hear about we're in a simulation.
mhm. Yeah.
And so if we consider that, then what if this is exactly what we're here to understand and know and continue to, evolve in, which is taking something that is, unseen, invisible in our current, situation, and then bringing that practicing that quantum,
Mhm,
piece of it that brings it into a 3D reality, makes it a tangible resource,
mhm,
provides a structure.
mhm.
So if we are continuing to practice that, that kind of seems very evolutionary for us in the first place.
For sure, for sure.
And so I feel like there's so many people that are probably like, "Yeah, I know, duh, that's what that's all." And and I also think there's a lot of people out there that go, "Yeah, I kinda didn't really get it."
Yeah, right, we're anywhere on that
On
range.
that spectrum, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And there was something that was just coming to me when you were saying that, and it was about how, um, we experience things
Mhm.
through our interaction, our relationship with the physical, as humans here.
Mm,
And so the more that we can have these experiences of creativity, of intuition, of knowing, feeling, of the heart energy, it changes our outward experience. And
yeah,
that's pretty obvious, but it's like
right,
how intentional are we
right.
in creating those experiences for ourselves, to opening to those experiences, to being curious about those experiences.
Mhm.
And I remember, and I think you were there. I did one of my intuitive painting workshops
Yeah.
once, and sometime there would be people that would come back, and sometime there would be people that would be new, maybe half and
Right.
half, or, some percentage. And this particular workshop, at one point, I had everyone walk out the door and enter the room as though it was the very first time they had walked into this place,
Mm.
the Goddess Studio, where we had the workshops. And I remember there was someone who had been going there for, like, she told me 10 years. And she said when she walked in the door and she had that intention to experience it as though it was the very first time, she said, I can't believe what I saw and how I felt in that space. She said, I've been here so many times in 10 years, but I had a completely different experience.
That's so cool. I don't remember that, but I think that's really cool.
Yeah. And it's like, and even the people that had come in like 2 hours before,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
had a different experience.
right.
And so that's the invitation that I'm getting
Mhm.
to really put
Mhm.
out to each one of us, to you and I as well as
Yeah.
anyone listening, is what are the things that you do normally? This is a very
Mhm.
practical way to put it into practice, is like when you park your car and you walk in the garage or you walk in your front door, enter it as though it were the first time. Set that intention. Or your workplace,
Yeah.
or your grocery store, or whatever it is that you do, like, I am entering this for the first time.
Mhm.
And what is my experience going to be like? What are my relationships going to be like? What is my um, energy with myself as I go in here? Like, do I have an expectation, like, oh, whenever I walk in here I feel really terrible,
Mm.
or like, it just opens that door, like you were saying, for us to have this experience of the quantum that we may not have been open to or aware
Yeah.
of.
Yes, or even thought of as a practical way of achieving things. I think that when we talk about I wanna bring the observer back into it, because when we're creating with intention and we're using the observation, when we talk about being the observer, it's um, not detached, it's a non-judgmental, non-emotional approach at, um, looking at what your actions are, what's happening inside you internally, how you're responding, how you're reacting, as simply an observer.
Mhm,
There's nothing that you don't think about the thoughts that come through your mind. You don't attach to any feelings and emotions that come up. It's just observing it. And when you're observing with creating intention, you're influencing outcomes.
mhm,
And so then you have the potential to collapse those things into form, which I think if we are using those 2 things, intention and observation,
mhm,
as we are moving through our lives or, doing something that's very specific to us, it
mhm,
will help us to be able to start to see how we create
mhm,
and start to really hone in and harness the power and recognize the power that we have individually
mhm,
and collectively
mhm.
for positive to move things in a positive, heart-connected way. Does that
Yes.
make sense, or did I just jumble a bunch of words together?
Yes. Well, I love the pairing of the observation and intention, or the observer and the intention,
Mhm.
because it really speaks to the power that we have that we aren't always aware of.
Mm,
And we think the power sometimes is our will or our ego
right,
mind, or
yeah,
our, that part of ourselves that wants to influence things.
yeah,
There's nothing wrong with that. However, there's another part of ourselves that's even more powerful. And
yes,
that, when we're the observer, when we're neutral, when we're objective, we're allowing that more expansive part of ourself, whether you call it your true self, higher self, the
mhm,
universe, God, to come through you.
yeah,
And then when you pair that with the intention that comes from, I don't know if higher place is right, but an intention that has a purity to it, that's aligned with who we are, what we're wanting to
Mhm.
create in the world, our
Mhm.
purpose, our mission. Those are two powerful forces, and they're synergistic. It's
Ooh,
not just 1 plus 1, it's equals 2, it's 1 plus 1 equals 1,000.
right, right,
Right?
right.
Yeah.
Yes, you're using 2 streams of energy that have equal power behind them and combining that together to create something that is very specific.
Mhm. Mhm.
And when you're doing that, the possibility of how that gets collected and formed is unlimited.
Yes, yes. And I would love for us to explore like where we've seen this showing up in our lives when
Mm.
we've done this. Like what's truly possible when we pair that observer and the intention together.
I think that, let me think about that for a moment,
Yeah.
because I think that that is what I love about this conversation is that now that sort of feeds into me a, opening of what are you allowing to come into your awareness?
Yeah.
And so if you are exploring and being intentional with your life and allowing yourself to be open to possibility, then your awareness is going to then open up because you've opened up that doorway between your subconscious and your conscious mind.
Mhm.
With through that, just accessing those 2 things, intention and observation. And that I think, I've seen myself go through a variety of different things, so I'm trying to think of, like, a good example that
Mhm.
would be something that, I could share. Okay, I'm gonna just use money because money's always something that everybody kinda gets a charge out of, right?
Yes.
In some way. And I wanna say that, I grew up with a, family structure that was very money wise. So my mother was very good at pinching pennies. She knew she only had a certain budget, and she was very good at making sure that we always had food. We never, did we, have steak every night? No. And she was very good about that. So money was always kind of like a thing that we never really had quite enough of, and yet we had our needs met.
Mhm.
So it never felt like there was, joy around that.
Mhm.
It always felt like a little bit hard. And so, I wanna say as an adult, I'm just giving that background because of a mindset that that sets up. So it takes, you a process of eliminating those limiting beliefs around, money or whatever you're, considering like this. And so once I was able to get to a certain point where I started to recognize that all of that was only placing limits on me, I observed that in myself. And then once I had that opening and was willing to see things differently, I was able to bring in a new way of thinking about it
Mhm.
that irregardless of whatever was set up in my childhood around survival, that I could establish a new way.
Mhm.
And that meant that I can let go and allow myself to have what I desire and know that I'm cared for no matter what, which allows me to let go of other things that might be putting some strain
Mhm.
on my financial picture to me. And so that opened up a whole different mindset of knowing that I can create and have exactly what I need and desire, and I will always have that. So
Mhm.
it gives me more freedom in
Mhm.
a sense. So I'm just kind of sharing that one as something that, I know that sounds maybe a little out there. I'm not saying like I manifested a car or something like that. Yet, it brought me it brought me several things that I was really desiring,
Mhm.
and I was able to do that and feel, really confident around it.
Yeah.
So is that a good enough example?
Yes, it does. It shows how you have that intention,
Mhm.
around freedom or whatever it is that you wanted to create around money, and then you're in relationship,
Mm.
right, with
Yeah.
your money.
Mhm.
And, I mean, how many people would love to have a relationship with money that has the intentionality of freedom,
Mhm.
peace, abundance, calm?
Yeah.
When you think about that. And so, yeah, that it makes sense what you're saying. And as you're talking about it, I could see how your experiences have changed. So early on, we talked about how we
Yes.
create our experiences
Yeah.
and how they're like a reflection, right, of
Mhm.
what's going on within us.
Yeah.
So I think money is such a powerful physical thing for us to explore in
Yes.
conversation and in real life.
I know, I think
In
so many
conversation.
people have, like, difficulty with money, and, I've seen people be able to manifest something or bring something in their life that, totally shifts and changes just like that, like in a
Mhm.
moment. And then they'll go along with that for a period of time, and then all those insidious little patterns start showing up, and if you aren't aware of those patterns that could be coming for you,
Mhm.
then you can end up back in the same place, and I've seen that with people where they've been
Yeah.
able to move, mountains, and then they end up kind of back in the same sort of spot,
Mhm.
and it has to do with more of a lack of awareness around the patterns that come in and sabotage in the way that they continually set up the energy around them, which is very much in line with quantum that we're talking about.
Mhm.
So now it's like, now that quantum is in my mind, or not in my mind, but open to me, or I'm open to it, I can now sort of see how it's forming around in various areas.
Mhm.
So it's really simply it always goes back to the Course in Miracles for me. I
Mm.
feel like A Course in Miracles is where I learned so many foundational things around metaphysics, and how they were speaking of shifting your perception is the same thing as quantum in a sense,
Mhm.
because you're opening yourself up to something new. The possibility to me is equaling quantum in a lot of ways.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that then allows you to then become creative and expansive within it, because creativity is that open possibility. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Creativity knows no limits. So when
Mhm,
we're in connection and relationship with the creative part of ourselves, it's how we can experience the unlimited being that we are, the infinite being that
mhm.
we are.
Yeah,
It gives us a little glimpse into that. And sometimes that's all we need, right?
yeah.
And so creativity there's something that's coming through here that I want us to explore a little bit. Give me a moment here
Mhm,
to put some language around it. But what I'm seeing is, excuse me, that creativity is an opening for us to explore a future that's not yet here. Okay,
mm,
that's not what I
mm.
was expecting to say.
I like it though.
Exploring a future that's not yet here, but at the same time, right?
Yeah,
There's no time, you know?
right, right.
And so that future is here and there at the same time.
Yes.
Okay. So there's a bit of a puzzle that's coming through. So if that's the case, then how do we position ourselves? So you talked about
Mhm,
perception. How do we position ourselves so that we can actually see that? And what's coming to me is a mountain.
mm,
Okay. So if you're looking in the distance, so let's say that the distance is the future, even though the future is here now, and you're standing at the base of the mountain, it's going to look different, right? You're not going to really
right.
be able to see it as much. But
Yeah,
if you go up to the top of the mountain, you're going to be able to see far, far in the distance.
Mhm.
So when you talked about awareness and perception, it's about, okay,
Mhm.
how can we practically in our life, even on a daily level, be able to access the top of the mountain so that we can see
Mm.
the possibilities, so we can create from a place of that future here now, as opposed to being so on the ground that we can maybe see, a mile in the distance as opposed to 100 miles in the distance
Right.
or something like that.
Right.
And so I think that's part of what's our an intention that we can set.
Yes.
Yeah, on a
What
daily basis is
I love
how
that.
do I lift my perception to the top of the mountain
Mm.
so that I'm seeing from a place that's more expansive and creative and resourceful.
I love that. I what's coming to mind is, how often do we I love this idea of being at the top of the mountain, seeing yourself there, and then being able to see a wider scope of, what exists out there. And I think that sometimes, one of the things that I think a lot of people do is your left brain comes in and wants to logic it out.
Mhm,
And so you have to practice that ability of not, allowing the left brain to come in and kind of, like, want to take control and make sense of it all,
mhm,
and allow it to just be what it is that comes in, and I think that that's where we can kind of it gets a little tricky for a lot of people because we live in this world where at the moment is very logical. It's very much about what's "real," quote, unquote.
mhm,
And, and I think that that's where we can end up sabotaging our efforts if we're not observant enough around them.
mhm.
So it's truly, becomes a practice, and, one of the ways to do that is through meditation, and, that is a very centered, freeing space within yourself that allows you to just be still. And, I really love that you brought that up and are talking about it.
Mm. Yeah, meditation is wonderful, right? For lifting
Mhm.
us up above kind of the minutia of our lives
Yeah, yeah.
and having a different perspective. But I shouldn't say but, and I've had so many people tell me over the years, I totally relate to, I can't meditate or I should
Mhm.
meditate more. There's like almost this guilt or this heaviness,
Yeah, yeah,
because it's hard to quiet our minds, right?
it is.
in this day and age. So one of the practices that I use and I've taught other people to use, and it's really kind of simple and fun, is imagine that you're a hawk or an eagle
Mm,
and you're lifting up from wherever your life is and you're going up to a high level and you're looking from that perspective at your life. And what do you see as the patterns? And you can even use that, and
mhm,
I've done this before, is to go back through my life and look at it as though I were an eagle. Because what happens, just like when you're in an airplane, right? It's like things you can see the patterns. You can say, "Oh, there's a grove of trees," or "There's a house
mm,
development." You can see
yeah,
the pattern, and you don't get caught up in the minutia,
right.
right? So you can go back in your life and you can say, "Oh, I can see that pattern with friendships, or I can see that pattern with
Mhm,
money, or I can see the things that I did, or the things that I said or thought." And then you can also do it for your current day, just looking at
mhm,
your life. Like, what are the patterns? Oh, yeah. When I wake up in the morning, I grab my phone
yeah,
and I start checking stuff. Huh, I don't meditate. There's really no space in my day for that. No wonder it's hard for me. No wonder I feel guilty, right?
mhm,
So that's just a practice I want to invite people to do is just imagine you're that bird, you're lifting up and you're flying up. And at that perspective, what are you seeing at that level? What are your thoughts? What are your decisions? What are your daily routines? What are your daily practices? What are
mhm.
the things, the beliefs that you're holding in your
What
mind?
What's coming up for me when I'm listening to you, I love that using yourself as a hawk flying over and, looking at all of the patterns. I love that. That's such a great exercise to do. And what I'd like to add on to what you're saying is making an I always list.
Mm,
I always do this, this, this. I
yeah.
always have this person in my life. I always have
Mhm.
trouble with blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And just do that. It's kinda like doing a brain dump, and then I always brain dump.
Yeah.
And that will help you tease out those patterns as well.
I love that, Josette. That's wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. And then if we relate that to the observer that we talked about, being
Mhm.
the observer, very just there's no judgment when you're doing this exercise.
Yeah.
I notice.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
like you
that's
said, I
good.
always just I
Yes.
notice. Like
Uh-huh.
as the observer, I notice. Um, yeah. And it's neither good nor bad. So just like when we brainstorm,
Right.
right? We get
Yes.
that encouragement, like you said, brain dump, put everything out. It's just like, what is it that you're noticing? There's no judgment attached to it.
Right. And doing a list like that gives you the practice of not attaching.
Mhm.
And there's something about well, we know this from just, that scientifically moving something from inside your body through writing is a very powerful thing to be doing, and putting it to page, um, moves that energy through you.
Mhm.
And so, using these types of tools like I notice
Mhm.
and I always are allowing you to shift that energy. There's gonna be something that changes because of it. And so the more that you do it, the more you are opening yourself up to possibility,
Absolutely.
right?
And
You're
then when
making
we add in the intention piece that we talked
Mhm.
about earlier, so with that awareness of what you're noticing and observing, what is your intention going forward? So
Yeah.
just like we talked about, the future is here now, and at the same
Mhm.
time, it's there now.
Yeah.
That puzzle, right? So we're
Yeah.
at the top of the mountain, and now we have that awareness of what we're creating. Okay, what's the intention now of what you want
Mhm.
to create,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And what what is a creative way? This is where you can use your creativity and intuition to
Mhm.
get there, not in a linear way, not in
Mhm.
a like A, B, C, D, E, F, but what might be your intuitive guidance for
Mhm.
your next step to shift things.
Yeah.
So the other day, like I love dancing in the morning. That creates like different energy in my life.
Yeah.
And it brings that joy that I know is possible. When I go up to the top of the mountain, that's what I see is a lot of joy and a lot of um, spontaneity, right, in my life.
Mhm.
So anyhow, so I was dancing the other day, but this time I was dancing in front of the mirror. And I was like, "Oh, boy, that changes things." Right? Because now I'm seeing that joy and I'm getting that feedback. So I don't know
Mhm.
why I'm getting to
Right.
share that, but maybe if someone who's listening, who you're already dancing or thinking about dancing, doing it in front of the mirror and not have any judgment. Just like, "Oh my gosh, I'm getting to see the joy it brings me. I'm witnessing
Mhm.
that." Right? And so that's just a little way of doing it, but that's how my creativity
That's
showed.
nice.
That's how it came in. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I like that because it's not only are you observing the joy, you're also kind of feeding it back and forth to yourself,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
which is really good.
So,
Like
yes, we're inviting those of
Mhm.
you who are listening now or in the replay to play with this
Yeah.
practice of observing. We've given you one way to do that of being that hawk or that eagle flying over and then writing down, I noticed or I always do this, like
Mhm.
noticing the patterns. And then putting a stake in the ground in a sense and
Mhm.
speaking about what is your intention? What is it you would like to create as the master creator you are? Write that down and invite your creativity to come in
Yeah.
and to give you a way to start to move towards that, to
Right.
change those patterns. Yeah.
Exactly. Because I think, well, one of the things that I I do already in the art of awareness is helping people with that creativity and then, seeing the patterns that are arriving on the page to show them the things that are blocking them and allowing, and also it gives openings of solutions. And so there's so much that comes together in the practice of playing and creativity and opening yourself up to allowing whatever is meant to arrive for you in that moment will show up in your art.
Yeah.
And then you have the opportunity to make those shifts in a quantum way because you're taking this, possibility and then seeing it, so you're observing it, witnessing it, and then you bring it into reality.
And
So
what I love about what you do in your art of awareness groups, Josette, is, and it's definitely quantum, is it's not just on an individual level, but it's on the collective level.
right, yes.
So since you're bringing other women together to have this awareness through art, through creativity, we get to see in each other,
Yeah,
right? The shifts we're making. And maybe something someone's aware of resonates for us, but we didn't see it
yeah.
for ourselves, but we can see it in someone else.
Mhm.
And that's such a powerful thing because then it starts to be exponential, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting, you know this from doing groups, and facilitating, that when one person has a spark on something, there's so many other people in the room that have the same stream of energy that's playing out in their life in a different way maybe, but it's still no buts, and it's still the same thing.
Yes. Yes. Women learn best in community.
Mhm.
I've seen that over the years, and I've also read research on that, which is
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
And so that's just, yeah, I just invite people to check out Josette's group if you haven't
Oh,
already, because it
Vasi.
is such a powerful tool. Talk about a practice. Plus, it's fun, right? To be in
It is
community and
really
to
fun.
create together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really fun, and the longer you're together, you know this, the longer you're together, the more fun it gets. Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah. Oh, yeah.
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 Well, I really thank you so much for entertaining this topic with me because, I was going out on a limb with speaking of quantum when I really don't know that much about it. So I wanted to explore it with you and kind of talk about it in a way that maybe other people think of it too, because I know we're not alone.
Right. This is an invitation. Just
Mhm.
like we gave ourselves permission, we gave ourselves
Yeah.
an invitation to explore this, is we're encouraging others to also do that, to open that door, to enter that
Yeah.
portal, see what's possible.
Right, exactly. And just because it's unknown, it's okay to take that leap.
Mhm. That quantum leap.
That's right, quantum leap. So, I wanna thank everyone for listening to us today and, come back next week. We're going to have some more subjects that we're gonna dive into and get brave and courageous and have a conversation, and please feel free to always leave us a message. We love to hear from you. And, we will see you next week. Was there anything you wanted to end with, Vasi?
Not consciously, but let me just tune in and see what is the message to leave people with is create from within.
Mm,
Create from within. A lot of times we think it has to be out there, but start to create that sense of wonder and awe and playfulness and observer from within.
yeah,
And then just observe how things change for you in the positive. Yeah.
yeah. That's beautiful. Thank you. What a great way to wrap up our episode today. So thank you very much.
Thank you,
All
Joseph.
right. Yes, you're welcome. And go out there, everybody, and get creative and open yourself up to the unknown and possibilities. It's actually quite an adventure. All right.